Hey guys, this is Anon, and I have some Object 140 gameplay to share with you today. Even with all the new tanks that we've had and all the updates we get, the topic of Russian bias is something that's always kind of a hot topic, and I feel like the Object 140 is kind of the quintessential representation of that. It's got such a crazy combination of DPM, armor, maneuverability, kind of the whole package that you don't find in many other tanks. Really the only thing it tends to lack is gun depression, although that's why the Object 140 I think is typically a little bit more popular than the T62A, which has 1 degree less gun depression. So it's just one of those tanks that you can use in a million ways. It's extremely versatile, and it's popular just even from pub games all the way to clan wars. So I figure, and it's always one of my most requested videos, so I don't think I could ever produce enough of these to keep you guys happy. So here on Vineyards, and I am platooned with Howitzer, and a lot of time on Vineyards, I would say 85% of the time, I like to go kind of into the center and use the bushes and spot things and get a little bit of sniping work in early. But the Object 140 is a little bit different. For me, it's a little bit more of an aggressor tank, so I go ahead and push in here. I was setting up just trying to spot stuff coming into the ruins so I can be careful about it, and now that I saw the Leo, I don't want to trade damage this early in the game because I might need those hit points later, which is a good choice because he has help in this E50, so I'm just being really careful and kind of picking my shots here. I was just about to think about pushing on the Leo when the E3 pops up to my right, so I give him a look because with him looking at me, if I were to crest this ridge, he could probably put a shot into me, and that's way too many of my hit points to sacrifice. So once I see the E3 turn and I've got a little bit of support, I can go ahead and push through to this Leo 1, which is going to get rid of a really dangerous tank right off the bat, and now I can kind of switch over to this E50, but again, I'm just being cautious with it at this point. It's a pretty tier 10 heavy battle, so I just want to conserve as many hit points as possible. I've got these nice low ruins, and that's what's nice about the armor profile on the 140. You don't need a lot of protection as far as hard cover to kind of hide it behind, and that's something that you just have to get good with this tank, knowing the little ridges that are going to help you and doing stuff like that right there, and just when you feel a shell coming, rotating out, because that front armor is so incredibly sloped that if you can put it on a kind of an extreme angle to a shell, it's going to bounce quite a bit. It also works really well kind of uphill from a tank on gentle slopes. It turns into an almost auto bounce, which makes it really, really dangerous. So just being careful here. Like I said, I'm really keeping an eye on the tanks to my right, but they're starting to spread out a little bit, so that's why I decided it's finally time to go ahead and push this E100 a little bit, especially because that's one of the more dangerous tanks on the other team, so that's when heat is so valuable with Russians. I don't spam it nearly as much as other people do, but if I'm facing an E100 and we're in kind of this side scraping position, I'm absolutely going to use it because you want the easy damage to go through the turret. And here you can see just moving back and forth, keeping myself difficult to hit. I'm trying to be careful, but the 103 comes in and rams me, so I'm coming in, trying to get a shot in and back up, and it's hard to see right here, but this Waffenträger is actually blocking me into shots, and with the 103 to my right, I have absolutely no choice but to charge out. I don't want to do that at all because there's so many shots. But I have absolutely no choice. I was going to get obliterated right there. So I'm trying to push through. I actually stopped because I wanted the STB to ram me to do some damage, but he almost flips me. He hits so hard. And I'm able to luckily use some of that hit point pool to get him closer to death than me, and use the nice DPM to work that out. So I got really lucky in that instance. I played it as good as I can. It's difficult when you get blocked like that, and that's where this little exchange, I'm trying to type. I think I thought it was a VK because of the gun shape. I'm trying to say don't block, and the spell check is killing me, so finally give up. It doesn't matter. We're in a 2 versus 3, so I'm just trying to be careful with it here, because right now, even though that was really frustrating, I should have most of my health. It's just something that happens in these matches, and you just got to make do and keep working on it. So I know with this little ridge I'm mostly protected with my hull, but if I roll out to take the shot, I'm not going to be completely protected, so that's why I'm being really careful with it here. And trying to make myself difficult to shoot and bait shots just like that, rolling back and forth. A lot of people will go ahead and take the shot because they think they have it aimed, and it doesn't necessarily work that way. And then there for a second you saw it actually lost 2 tanks, including my platoon mate, in a real quick succession, and that's why you conserve as much as you can. But I've got the uphill advantage, so a Yag Tiger I'm not too worried about in this situation because of the great DPM of this tank, the rate of fire. That's why I'm instantly shooting into his drive wheel, because if I can make him use one or both, if he has them of his repair kits, then this situation happens and there's nothing he can do. If for some reason he had a repair kit come off its cooldown, I could still turn around and flank. So you just got to put yourself in those situations, and that's one of those times that high ground really rules, so got to be careful with it. So this is one of those battles that's really frustrating because I almost died, and it's something you just have to keep your cool on and try and work through. I made the quick decision to push through, which luckily it worked out. Sometimes that kind of stuff doesn't happen, but you just have to kind of work on the fly and try and overcome those situations. Okay, we're going to switch over to Port Bay now, and I'm platooned with XJS. This 140 video kind of inadvertently also turned into kind of an overcoming obstacles video, and I think that's part of what says, really tells the story of the Object 140. It's so versatile that you can get yourself out of trouble quite a bit, and it carries so well because of its nice armor profile that there's a lot you can do. Right off the bat, we have some pretty well-known players on both sides, including some people that don't necessarily buy themselves a lot of friends. Our team starts off really funky, so XJ and his Leo is trying to get a quick flank going, but unfortunately that gamble doesn't pay off, and the other team has decided to push into port. It's a pretty rare situation. He tried to push through and run like you can in a Leo, but unfortunately has just that unlucky thing that happens every once in a while when you try and push that flank, something you have to be careful of. I wasn't even able to put a shot into them as they go, but it's like I said, it's just something that kind of happens in these situations sometimes, especially when your team is kind of making interesting choices right off the bat. So I'm going to go ahead and relocate and try and reset the map. We know exactly where their team is, which is extremely beneficial. But with the quality of the players on the other side, you have to be certainly careful with that too. So I'm always going to choose the high ground in situations here. So I'm trying to just kind of start to pick off any tanks that start to come out, or look for anything that's isolated, and just kind of switch now to good gameplay, because they made the gamble of trying to flank us, but at the same time have now put themselves in a low ground situation, which is where you have to be careful in those flanks, especially when the whole team flanks, to be able to do that and just kind of work our way through here. Like I said, some characters on both sides, so this is a little bit of a salty game, but that's just kind of happens when there's a lot of egos involved. So again, I'm going to relocate because I don't like the shots that I have on the right side, and now on the left we've got a little bit more showing up, so I'm just going to be careful in here. And again, if anybody makes a mistake and pushes through, I'm going to fight for it. I can see their 140 now taking our 140, and just based on the minimap and how I've seen everybody pop up, the other TDs are down lower. So I can tell that he has got himself isolated for the most part and doesn't have a lot of support because the other team is a little farther away. So I'm going to go ahead and charge in, and this is what is so great about the 140. It's brawling tactics, and as long as you know kind of where you're at as far as gun depression and the angles, you can really take advantage. He doesn't like this situation and is trying to run away, so I'm going to keep pressing because, again, I can see on the minimap where the tanks are. Their TDs are busy working on my 140 that engaged him and ran away. And this is also where I am going to do some of that rare Pramo spam, because when you're in a brawl like that, you can't afford to lose a shot because it doesn't take much. My thinking at that point is that's one of their better players, so even if I lose, say, 50% or more of my hit points, it at least gives my team a chance, and sometimes that's what it's about. And now we've gotten ourselves into a 2 versus 4, which is still bad, but considering how the game started, we're working our way back a little bit, and I did a good job in that brawl and pushing him into a non-advantageous position, and that's why I was able to conserve more of my hit points. This E75 that's alive has gotten himself kind of into open space and is just pushing through town, so I actually don't want to stay with him because I'm kind of worried about his ability to kind of survive, and I don't want to just be sitting in the open like that, so I was hoping for some good spots, and he actually there does a good job of of being able to pick him off, and now we're in a 2 versus 2, which is quite a bit better. And again, I could push down and help him, but the E4's got a really good covering situation, and it is isolated, and that's the bigger gun. So instead of pushing down into him and letting ourselves be in more of a crossfire, I want to take away that crossfire and try and push back in. So again, I'm just going to use the brawling of the 140 and charge right in. Do a good job of wiggling at the last second to let the tracks eat a shot. But this is such a huge thing to be able to go ahead and get rid of this big gun and put us up in a 2 versus 1 situation against another good player, so it's going to be good. Now I've put this carcass essentially in the perfect spot, switch back to heat just like I talked about because of the brawling situation, and now I can go ahead and charge right at him and use the great DPM of this tank. I'm just moving up and down and making myself a very difficult shot, and especially keeping my hull low, so he has to try and use his gun depression, and I'm able to do that too. So this isn't an ace, but it was overcome a lot of adversity with it, and essentially brawled 3 or 4 different tanks in the process of this. You don't want to go at multiple tanks at the same time, but when you have them isolated, the 140 is just absolutely phenomenal at being able to do that. Okay, and one last battle, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Mirage, and again, just trying to show the great versatility of this tank. Russian tanks in general don't necessarily have a great reputation as sniping tanks, but with the mobility and the armor profile, the 140 and the T62 do a really good job with it. You just have to be careful of choosing your engagements and not necessarily leaving team out to dry. So I roll up onto this hill just because I know if something is right in front of me and the mediums that push through, that slight grade of the hill is going to protect most of my hull, and I can use that just real slight amount of gun depression to keep myself safe. But when most of their team gets spotted so quickly and they're to the right side, I instantly am going to start pushing through. I figure just based on the math, it's most likely I'm going to run into one medium at most, and getting behind them and starting to work that flank is something that's so incredibly valuable. And the 140 is so good at it because it has the brawling ability and the armor that if the tanks turn and face you in one-on-one situations, you can still deal with it. So the Object 268 instantly pops up and is firing, but doesn't seem to care that I'm shooting at him, so I'm going to focus on him first. I was assuming after I took that first shot that he would roll away, but since he's focused on other tanks, I want to get rid of that really dangerous gun right off the bat. I had switched to going for track shots, but when he wasn't moved, I'm aiming now at the ammo rack because I was hoping to get a double tap on that and not have to fire so many shots, but that doesn't really work out. And now I can see that their whole team is really bunched up, so I'm going to work on any of these isolated tanks one-on-one in the background. So this STI is got a nice view. I could move forward and get easier shots, but right now I'm not spotted, and that's the way I want to keep it because he can't shoot back. And anytime you get free damage exchanges like this where you can't take anything back, you've got to absolutely take that. You can see there he's taking blind shots and destroying rubble, so I'm just going to be as careful as possible. I can see the E5 is also isolated, so I know I can roll forward a little bit, but it's more likely that he's going to spot me, so I'm just being careful with it. And also everything is so directed at my team now, and we're down now 2 tanks that at this point you have to be a little bit more careful, and I was hoping to pull a gun away from them, which is what happened. I pulled the E5 away, but the STI didn't really want anything to do with me at that point and went ahead and pushed through. So we're catching up a little bit, still down by 1, and again, I'm just conserving hit points. Once I see the E5 roll out, I think he's going to try and start flanking our tanks, so that's why I go ahead and push forward, because I don't want that to happen. The whole point of me being here is to try and isolate as much as I can. So instead he's charging me, which again, this is why I was okay with being in this situation, because it doesn't take much to keep this tank protected, so I'm just rolling out. I was prepared to take a shot there if I needed to, but instead now I've pretty much completely locked down this flank. It's okay that we have a teammate upset by it, but I've done my job. We're 3-on-3 at this point, but everything is in front of me, and we've got a full pincer now with me here, so I can push straight through. I can be much more aggressive at this point, but this is the whole point of this maneuver, is to really make sure that you can do that. and it's a way to lock down a win for sure. I mean, at this situation, there's not a lot they can do. We're up one tank, and we've got them completely surrounded, and so that's what I've just done. Used this tank to the best of its abilities in all ways, and that's why I really liked how this video kind of turned out, because you can see the extreme versatility in these things. So hopefully you like this video. Hopefully it helps a little bit with the 140. The T62 honestly plays very similar, just doesn't have the top speed, and it's a little bit stronger on the turret. So as always, if you like this video, please follow on YouTube and on Twitch. Got lots of stuff coming up as always, plenty more videos. So take care, guys.